All right, Buff fans, welcome to another video. Myself, Brian Howell, here with Matt Smith, and Matt. We did this for the first time last week, and Buff fans actually liked it, and they're like, "Hey, can we do this weekly?" And I guess they like when people talk about the Buffs, and so
Yeah,
whether
go
it's
figure.
you and me, or me and Adam, and you and whoever, Adam and Chico, whoever it is, they like when people talk about the Buffs. So we're gonna do that, and we had fun doing it last week, and as we mentioned last week, you and I have known each other for a long time. We've covered the Buffs for a long time, so we come at it from the perspective of we're both long time, Buffs media that both also grew up here. So yeah,
Yeah,
we grew up
yeah.
around Colorado. So, but we're doing this on a Sunday, a couple days after media day, and so we want to talk about that. And there's different sides of things we want to talk about for media day,
Sure.
and so let's just start with the obvious topic, and that is what's gotten all the attention with some of the comments that Deion Sanders made to other media members, and we don't have to hide their names, I guess. I mean, it's been out there.
Yeah.
Sean Keeler, obviously, even fired back with another column. What were your, just in general, what were your thoughts on Deion's mannerisms, towards Sean and other media that day?
Gosh, I went into this pretty good in a little video that I put out there, and I got some good reaction to it from the point where there is two sides of the coin here, undoubtedly. And for those of us who have been around consistently, I don't think what happened on Friday was much of a surprise. In fact, I would say most of us expected we were headed that direction at some point, and we
Yeah.
got there on Friday. However, the other part of it is I think part of it was justified. And to Sean's credit, to Keeler's credit,
Mhm.
in his follow-up article, which was, whatever, um, he did acknowledge that he had it coming. And I give him credit for that, for having the awareness. But at the very same time, when he was responding to Deion, he said, "Well, I'm not attacking you today," when asked, "Why are you attacking us?" And when you say that, it's like, okay, you know, I look, when he flips it around on you as a journalist, most people don't know how to handle that. It's really not their job. But at this very same time, that piece that Sean put out this summer, I thought was very unfair.
Yeah.
He called him a fraud and a music man. He called him a false prophet, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. It was,
In February, actually, it was before spring ball.
yeah, there you go. And look, I mean, you and I talked about it when that came out, and I was like, wow, that's uncalled for. And it was, and Deion let him hear about it. But again, I also thought that Sean approached it with a condescending tone. If you go back and you watch the video, he did. So again, he was kind of asking for it and he got it, but he didn't really handle it all that well in that moment. So again, it's not his job, and you're not going to get that type of interaction most likely anywhere else.
Yeah.
So it's a unprecedented situation.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, again, I felt like some of it was justified. However, Deion is also the face of the program. You probably want to be a little bit of a bigger man, and I don't mean it to the degree that, hey, act differently, but he kind of held on to it for a while, and it had gotten to the point where we were kind of beating a dead horse. Clearly, Sean wasn't going to engage on that. And honestly, Deion reserves every single right to not answer a question, especially if somebody attacks you like Sean did, which again,
Right.
in that piece in February, to me, there really wasn't news about it. It was just kind of an attack on his character, unsolicited. So again, I thought it was a little bit of a cheap shot for sure. And look, he got it. He got
Yeah.
it, and he didn't
Mhm.
handle it all that well. So that one in particular, I don't think anybody was surprised about.
I
It's an
actually, to be honest with
Yeah, go
you,
ahead.
I'm surprised it took so long. I mean, the article that you're first referencing, there's been a few pieces by Sean, but the one you reference
Yeah,
is from February. We
yeah,
went through all of spring ball, and Deion only talked, what, 3 or 4 times in spring ball, but there was 3 or 4 opportunities that
yeah,
Deion could have done that, and he didn't. And I was actually really surprised that he didn't do that in the spring. And so I'm surprised it took this long.
yeah.
And I agree with you. And Sean, I agree with you, to your point. To Sean's credit, he said he had it coming. I thought he did too. I mean, I was not surprised that he did that with Sean. I'm just surprised that it took till August to do that.
Yeah, 100%, Brian. And I even mentioned that in my video. It was like the reason it was so inflammatory is because he did wait so long to do it. Now, typically, if that situation occurs at a different program, that's handled behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, with the heat that is on the program, unfairly or fairly, however you want to look at it, I believe it's unfairly. I've reported that it's unfairly. So have you. So that's how I believe it, and that's how I know it to be, because you and I are actually around the program versus, some guy in North Carolina who, we can get into that if you need to, but I don't want to even drag that into the conversation.
Yeah,
here.
I'm done with that one.
Me too. Turn the page, because it's all just complete crap.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, you're not going to get that interaction really anywhere else, because Deion did lay the groundwork for this. He did last year. He said, why aren't journalists held accountable? And so when you kind of hear all that, and then you see what that piece was, again, uncalled for, unsolicited, really of no substance other than to attack his character, which again, you and I both acknowledged in February. I was like, wow, did you see this?
Right.
So again, I didn't have a problem with it. Now, again, most people who are used to things a certain way and not used to things Deion's way are not going to understand it, and he's going to get a lot of people who scoff at it. However, at least I don't know how you feel, but I'm normalized to Deion now. So nothing is really a surprise to me. And he's been very vocal about wanting to kind of hold a crusade to hold journalists accountable. And honestly, he probably has some validity to it. Certainly when you see a piece like that, you go, well, and this is something I brought up, that do you really owe it to that person to address them privately if they didn't come to you privately first? Right. Like, why would you owe that person any respect in that regard? So I also get it from that perspective. That's all I really have to say on the Keeler thing. I addressed it in my other video. We knew it was coming. Here's the last thing I want to say. I just genuinely hope that we can find a way to leave that there. It's going to need to be addressed behind the scenes now. It doesn't need to be addressed more publicly now, unless he chooses to do it that way, which I guess it's his volition. I wouldn't do it that way, but I'm going to do things differently in general. So if he wants to do it, I'd probably go, hey, we need to have a conversation to the side now, because it's enough of dragging this on, because he's making it more about that and about the negativity than about the really positive things that are going on. So I think it's important that he highlights that, but he set a precedent at Media Day. We can move forward with a different tone now. And again, if you write something unfair, he has every right to call it out, and he has every right not to answer your question. However, I think it's important that we start to focus on the more positive things, because, and this is something that I know we want to get to, when you go through and you talk to the players in this program and the culture behind the scenes, the false accusations aren't anything close to representative of what the state of the program actually is. Right. And if they were to put out, and you made a great point in your video with Adam, and I totally felt the same way after Media Day, there's limited media access. And I know some people scoff at the thought of us actually telling these players stories, right? Because I've heard that, right, when I've made that statement, as opposed to, knowing everything. It's not about knowing everything. There are some really, really amazing young men in that program, and it would be an honor to be able to tell their stories. And the one thing I wanted to bring up for people that are new to the process or haven't, followed for a long time, the way it used to work is you would probably have an availability with a coach, like 4 days a week?
Yep.
At least
4 or 5. Yeah.
4 or 5. And you'd get at least several players every single day. Not only that, but you could make a request with the sports information department to receive one-on-one interviews. And sometimes in those one-on-one interviews, you're able to gather more because you're working on a specific story.
Yeah.
You're not trying to, weed anything out, but you also have the opportunity to meet these guys, get to know these guys, and then, tell their stories. Because the truth of the matter is, as great as Well Off is, and they do an amazing job, there's just not enough time, nor is it really the main goal of what they're doing to tell everybody's stories. But if you got those out more consistently, people would start to understand what the culture is actually like in the program. Right. And then you'd hear these unfounded claims and go, well, that's ridiculous, which was our reaction, because we've actually had a chance to meet Jordan Seaton. We got a chance to know Savion Washington a little bit. That's ridiculous. Shiloh, I mean, are you kidding me? This guy, you realize what's at stake for him to do something that he was accused of, and having that altercation with Cormani in front of everybody? That would be really, really dumb. He's not dumb. He's a really bright young man. Yeah. And those are the types of things that it's just not common knowledge because unfortunately right now the negative aspects of the program are kind of being highlighted. And while I get what Deion's doing, and I really didn't have a problem with it because again, I felt like he had it coming, as Sean acknowledged, he felt like he had it coming himself. I just think that maybe more of the energy would be better served in trying to highlight what's actually going on, because when people see it, they would be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like other programs where they have really good high character young men.
Yeah.
Deion does not recruit kids who, you know, for lack of a better word, you know, are constantly involved with foolishness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bull
That's
junk.
just not, yeah, but whatever you want to call it, he
Yeah.
wouldn't put up with that. Not at all. I mean, that is a big part of what he is trying to create here. But unfortunately, I think sometimes that doesn't get highlighted enough. And that's where local media comes in.
Yeah.
And that's where we can bridge the gap there. And unfortunately, we don't have that um, liberty to the degree that, and luxury to the degree that we've had in the past where we've had that accessibility. So look, it's just a different way of doing things. But I do think it would be fun, because the one sad thought that I had the other day, and maybe some people might scoff at this, but it was just a little bittersweet for me, because as great as media day is and getting to meet everybody, I'll probably never speak to a lot of those guys that I talked to again. That's what happened
Yeah.
last year
Right.
before they graduated and left, because we just didn't have access. And I just think it's a little bit unfortunate. And I actually think that it would help the program in that regard, because you would be able to highlight the real nature of what's happening behind the scenes instead of what some guy across the country is being told by whoever, by whatever. So anyway, that's my thought on that, and I appreciate you being patient through my tangent.
Well, yeah, and I want to get back to that part of it, the telling the stories. But let me just give you my thoughts real quick on what happened the other day. And
Yes, please. I haven't talked to you about this, so
right.
I'm
And
interested to
so,
hear it.
you know, like I said, Sean Keeler had that coming. I do think I didn't like what Deion did to Eric Christensen. I didn't like what he did to Arnie Stapleton. I don't understand those couple of changes, those exchanges. The whole, what does bolstered mean? He kind of, but Deion does that, and that would be my. Sometimes I've been labeled a hater, but I'm not. But that's one of my
Yeah,
biggest
I know.
complaints on Deion is like, I think sometimes he comes into those situations looking to fight.
Yeah, it's a little
And
adversarial. It's a
it
little
is, and
adversarial. Yeah.
and I like him, and I do like him in general. I want to make that point. I like him in general, but I do
Yes.
think sometimes he just, he's. I think this comes from being almost a lifelong celebrity. Is that he's been jaded by media, and I get it. But I think sometimes he comes in there. He's never loved media, right? Go back to Tim McCarver, right? But
Sure.
you can go all the way back there, but he's never loved it, and we've at times, you just never know when you're going to be the one that he might jab at a little bit, and that's
Can I make a
okay.
quick correction? I
Yeah,
wouldn't necessarily say he's never loved it. I would say that he takes greater exception to what he perceives to be being treated unfairly. And to be
yeah,
frank about it, I haven't covered many people who get treated as unfairly as he does at times.
right,
And I
right,
think even I have had kind of enough of that, where it's like, you guys are missing the whole point here. So
yeah,
yes, continue. Sorry.
yeah, and so my point in that is that it's always kind of been the way he's been, and in the almost 2 years, I guess a year and 8 months, whatever that he's been here, you just kind of deal with that, and you understand that, hey, there's times that you might ask a question that seems harmless, and he might just find
Yeah.
something with it, and that's
Yeah.
the way it is. And that's where um I know we keep mentioning Sean Keeler, but like his follow-up column, and he talked about that showing fear. I
Yeah. That was
100% disagree with that. Like, that's just Deion Sanders. I don't think that in any way says this is a guy that's afraid he doesn't have a good team. No, I think he was just ticked off at the way you write about his program. And I think he, not just to Sean, but like the CBS thing, he's clearly ticked off. Some people have said it's about because they ranked him low on the coaching. That's not it. There's other things that that are, I think, involving Shiloh's situation and things like that he's upset about. I get it. When you and your family and your program are being attacked, you don't like it, and that's
no.
not fear. I don't think he's afraid that he doesn't have a very good football team. I think that's just Deion Sanders. Sometimes he does that, and so anyway, I thought overall, Deion was fine that day. It was just those couple interactions get highlighted. And again, Matt, I do like him. I think that, there's a lot of times that he comes and talks and, you get some good stuff out of him.
Yeah.
And, I've in general had a good relationship with him. There's times that there's a little barbs back and forth, but, and going back to when I met him really for the first time, in Atlanta at the Celebration Bowl, he was great. I had a couple chances to sit down with him one-on-one. He's great. Especially with cameras off. I enjoyed meeting Deion, and not
Right.
necessarily Prime. But I like the guy, and that's where he's going to be with media sometimes. He's not afraid, anything like that. And yeah, some people have it coming sometimes. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I'll add my final comments here, and then we can kind of move on because I think it's been addressed to death now at this point.
Yep.
The CBS situation, again, I don't know what that specifically was about. I've heard the things that you're talking about.
I know it's not about the ranking. It's not
I mean
all about that ranking.
he wouldn't care about that. I don't think
care.
so. The other one though makes sense, and that there has been a lot of shoddy reporting done on that situation specifically, and there's a lot of gray area. And honestly, it really has nothing to do with CU stuff. So, quite frankly, I mean, I'm aware of it, but I'm not.
You're talking about the Shiloh situation.
I'm talking about Shiloh's situation. Yeah, I'm talking about Shiloh's situation that's been reported on. But again, I think another situation that's probably been reported on unfairly. However, look, I don't want to be critical of that because I don't know what's going on there. So I really don't want to speak on something I'm unaware of. So it's best that we just move on at that stage. But with the CBS thing specifically, look, Eric is a Buff. Right? Eric is a Buff, and he's a really good person, and Deion acknowledged him as such. Deion did acknowledge that my problem isn't with you. And I'll be real. Most coaches I know, when declining a question, don't do that. They wouldn't do that. However, the critics I've heard of that moment are, well, you didn't explain what it was and to be what it was that upset you. And I'm going, I don't think he really needs to, if I'm being honest. I think but I will say, I think that because it's in that setting and he belabors the point sometimes to the point where, okay, we probably made it a bigger deal than it needed to be and go, hey, look, whatever, let's just move on here. And I would hope that moving forward, again, look, he can handle it however he wants. And again, I think holding people accountable is right, especially when you're him. Because again, I really believe that the attacks on the culture are completely unfounded based upon everything that I've reported and that I know. But again, I don't know that they're doing themselves many favors by making everything so inaccessible, because just the truth is, they have videos out every day, but it doesn't show everything that really would be indicative. And there is that really good stuff going on constantly. And the one thing that I think is funny, and the last thing I'll mention on the media stuff, Keeler's new piece, I didn't really want to address it too much. I kind of said whatever before. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was vindictive. It was emotional. Again, I really refrain from speaking on other people's reporting too much, but I don't know what he expects moving forward with writing a piece like that. I think that was another mistake by him. He should have waited to actually at least write Deion a letter or an email of some sort, because I believe that the sports information department probably would have given it to Deion at that stage based upon how inflammatory that incident got. Because if he's going to continue to be around the program, this will not be the only time something happens. So they're going to have a better plan, because you can't keep doing that every time. You just can't. It's just, there are more important things here. He's not worth your time in that regard. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what, if that's all he's going to bring to the table, which unfortunately track record shows, I'm not making any comment. It's just on this specific situation. I don't know. Some of it, in my opinion, has definitely been unfair, but look, everyone's entitled to write whatever it is. You just got to know that if you're going to write that and sit there, you got to be ready to stand up behind it. And he kind of didn't.
Well, and I do want to say, Sean Keeler writes a lot of positive things about CU too. It's just those things get highlighted. But I also do want to point out, Matt, that let's not pretend that Deion Sanders is the first coach to go after a reporter. So there's people saying, you're the face of the program, you can't do that. It's like, sure you can. If you feel like things are attacked, I mean, look around the country. Mike Gundy, the whole "I'm a man, I'm 40." That was him defending one of his players who felt was unfairly attacked. Right? Nick Saban's done it. Coaches. There's history of coaches that get mad at what reporters are doing and they take it out on them in a press conference. Let's not pretend that
this is an isolated incident.
This is an isolated thing, and that Deion Sanders can't act like that. Of course he can. if you're that
He can do
upset,
whatever he wants to
do
do,
whatever he wants to
honestly.
do. So
Yeah,
let's move on from that.
I agree.
The
Hey,
other
be
point
done
you
with
made,
that now.
right? Be done with that. So
Yeah,
the other point you made, this is what I want to get to next, is that all the good stories that are out there. I thought you made a great point, earlier in this video, was that what Well Off and Reach the People and the pregame show with Uncle Neely, they do a great job of doing what they do and putting out the
absolutely.
content inside, things like that. But you
Yeah,
mentioned, hey, their role is not necessarily to tell the story of so and so, right? Now, Darius Sanders, I know, has done a good job. He's done some, one-on-one interviews with guys. That he's doing a great job with that. But I think that Deion and his team sometimes rely too much on, that we're going to control the story that way. But I think there's a purpose that we serve, and that we can tell stories in a different way, and we can all coexist. And I think that's what I love about Media Day, is that, you know, just today, right before we started this, I posted a feature story on Ryan Staub. Might be the only chance I get to talk to Ryan Staub this year, because we hope he doesn't play, right? Because that means Shedeur Sanders is doing well.
right, right.
Tyler Brown. I sat down with him the other day, and he pointed out to me, he's like, "Man, this is the first time we've done an interview since Atlanta before the Celebration Bowl." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right." He still remembered that. And anybody that I've gotten to talk to, they we have good rapport. Cam Silman Craig, I sat down with him, and I asked him, I said, "Did we do a phone interview when you first committed?" He goes, "Yeah, we did." And he totally remember that. So, but that was almost a year and a half ago, or over a year and a half ago. It's like, I'd love to tell these stories, going back, I mean, all the years we've covered the Buffs, right? Phil Lindsay, who you work with there at 104.3 The Fan. I interviewed him 50 times, right? Going back to a signing day celebration, I could walk up to Phil Lindsay somewhere in the grocery store. We give each other a hug, and, because, got to know that guy really well, right? There's so
Yeah.
many guys like that. And that's the thing. We don't get those opportunities there. But I think that, yeah, as you mentioned, there's so many good young men on this team that the nation doesn't realize, because now you got these crap stories that say, "Oh, it's a gun culture," all this stuff. No, 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 no. There's some really good young men on this team that I would love to highlight them more, and tell their stories. And I said this to Adam the other day, that would be my maybe one criticism, maybe one thing I wish I could tell Deion he would listen to, is like, let us tell those stories, because you got some really good young men we'd love to highlight.
And again, we would be able to bridge the gap. But look, I think there's another part of it that sometimes he doesn't tell us everything that's going on, or at least his thought process into everything. And I think
Yeah,
another part of it could be that, look, you've got to take care of your business on the field if you want to be a face of this program for,
yeah.
if you want to play here for us,
Mhm.
which I respect that too. However, it's just, you know, you miss a lot, because the other part of it is it's not like you have 4 years where you have to get in touch with, these different athletes now, because they had 80 whatever new kids last year, and
Yeah,
46 new transfers this year. I mean, it's just brand new, stories into the program, and brand new, faces that unfortunately are just, I would say, a little bit foreign to your average fan, because again, but I think there's a reason and a method to his madness. So I don't want to get too far into that. However, look, it's the truth is that if they were out there, a lot of this would quell itself.
yeah.
And there would be a lot more focus on everything, because I think that people are so focused on the flash aspect of it, they
Mhm.
don't understand that there's actually real substance through character and through work ethic in the program.
Yeah,
And this year it's to a different level, and I do hope that people see that. And whether with or without us, again, I mean, people don't care about the media. That's the other thing. And people love
right,
to see coaches shove the media in a locker. Like, I respect that too as a
right,
sports fan. So
right.
don't think we have some crazy sense of, self-importance and entitlement. We understand our role that we play in this entire equation. And the fact of the matter is, right now, the Buffs have so much national attention that they don't really need local media, right?
Yeah,
But the fact of the matter is, it could enhance it too in a
right.
different way that we haven't experienced yet. Because, I'll say this: you don't want to immediately come in and just throw everybody the wolves with people you don't trust, especially for Deion. Trust is really important, and he likes to vet everybody himself and kind of look you up and down and see what you're made of too.
Yeah,
So you kind of have to earn that trust as well. And look, we'll see what happens, but I'll say this: whatever happens with the media, you know, this year ultimately will be determined by what happens on the field. And ultimately, that's all I really care about at this stage. In
right.
fact, if Deion didn't speak, and I'm being real here, if Deion did not speak to us, if he didn't on Friday and he didn't before the year, I mean, would it be any different than what we're going to get? He doesn't really
No.
want to give us anything anyway, which is fine. So at this
Right.
stage, all that needs to be done is the play on the field will do the talking for them.
Yeah.
And Shiloh acknowledged as much. You know, the first comment as he sat down for media day saying, I didn't want to do this. I feel like the time for talk is over, which I really respect because that's some self-awareness there that, hey, look, we've written some big checks here. We all understand it. We can feel the pressure on us. And yeah, Prime has been adamant in saying last year was a year for hope and resuscitating this dead program. And now there's expectation. And they all recognize this. This is not
Yeah.
breaking news to anybody. So again, we see both sides of it, and it's important to us. And I also want to say, like, normally you and I aren't the type of people that would dissect somebody else's work. So to do that, it's because it's been made so public, which the
Right.
only reason it's been made so public is because of those interactions. And to be
Right.
fair, again, justified, but could have been handled a different way on both sides. Could have been worse, probably could have been handled with a little bit more touch, but the message was sent. I'll tell you that. The message was sent.
That's
Everybody else could be shaking when they ask him questions now.
well, and I'll say this too. One thing the national media, yes, they get a lot of national attention. One thing the national media is not going to do is tell Cameron Still and Craig's story.
Exactly. And
They're
I
not
think that
going to
was our
tell
point. Yeah.
Tyler Brown's story.
Yep.
They're not going to tell Jeremiah Brown's story, whatever. So with that, that's what I loved about Media Day was getting the chance to sit down with a bunch of young men, and just interview them. BJ Green, I've been waiting to talk to him, since from the time he committed. I tried reaching out unsuccessfully, through social media, whatever, and couldn't get him. Um, Phenomenal interview. I mean, he was fantastic. I don't know if you talked to him or not, but that story will come out at some point soon. I'm kind of rolling those out. Yeah, we have to pace ourselves on these things, so it'll come out soon. But just an awesome young man, and he was a great interview. Micah Welch, quieter guy, but super nice young man and great interview. I'm excited for what he can do as a running back. Tyler Brown, we've heard his story a little bit. Just awesome young man. I'm trying to think who else I talked to. Cam Silman Craig was great. I already wrote that story. Ryan Staub. I chatted with the Wester brothers together. Oh my gosh.
Characters,
Oh,
those
I don't
two.
know if you talked to them, but we've all seen Shador and Shiloh together, doing their thing. They're
Right.
fun. They're
Right.
fun.
Yeah.
These two were just as fun. They were awesome. And I posted snippets of all these things, but I can't wait to post that full video at some point. Those two guys were awesome. Just there's good personalities and good character guys on this team, and great players too. And so that's what I'm excited about. But last thing before we get out of here, Matt, just tell me real quick a couple of conversations you had and some impressions you had from a couple of guys.
Yeah, that was great. I got to talk to Will Shepard, DJ McKinney, Isaiah Harge, Hank Zielinskis. I kind of did a cool thing where, and you know what, for media day, I just like to keep a lot of it off the record for me personally. You're the one banging out these, deadline stories all the time. So
Yeah.
it's just a different approach for me. I kind of just want to evaluate who these young men are, get to know them, and ask them to tell me their story in their own words. Because
Right.
sometimes you hear things from them that you'd never hear by just reading a biography, even if I've read it before. So I like to do that. And I had a fun little content piece where I, kind of broke down the wall a little bit, asked them some fun questions, and I talked to Chidozie Nwankwo, Savion Riley, Tafik Thomas, and obviously Jace Feely was there. Trevor Woods, Jimmy Horn, got to sit down with the two of those guys and kind of just, ask Trevor specifically just about the changes because there's 46 new transfers, but there's also a lot of new position coaches. And how has the staff transition been as well? And, again, you just come away from that going, wow, you just wish you could have that opportunity a little bit more,
Yeah.
because first of all, it would be great because you could kind of get to understand the fabric of what makes these people work and their stories could be told more accurately, but also,
Right.
just good to see the perspective on how things have changed. You can tell how comfortable everyone is. Everyone, newcomers, even newcomers, talked about how this is one of the more tight-knit cultures that they've been a part of so far. So I
Yeah.
thought that was great. I really did. And I would say my favorite, I don't want to single anybody out because I really enjoyed my conversation with everybody. But I got to sit down with Khalil Benson one-on-one for a while and get to know him. And man, if he's not the perfect example of the player that Deion wants to bring, what a great kid this is. And Tyler Brown came and sat down with us. I've never met Tyler Brown before. why did we not get Tyler Brown before? You know, that was one of those things. Put Tyler Brown out there if you want to quell the questions about culture in your program. This is just the most amazing human being. And same with Benson. And unfortunately I didn't get a chance to talk to Mayers yet, but you know, look, just
Mayers is great too. He's
that's
fantastic.
what I've
Yeah.
heard. So, and Zelinskis was fantastic. He's a local kid I didn't know. That's the one thing. There's a couple of Colorado kids here.
And we've seen Jordan Seaton now. He's one of the most polished freshmen we've ever heard, right? So there's your 5 probably starting offensive linemen, all incredible guys.
Incredible guys. And I'll just say, like, all well spoken. And Jordan Seaton is just, he's just a big teddy bear. Like, I know he's an offensive line. We want him to be tough. He is tough. I promise you that. But he's also just he's wise beyond his years. I promise you, I can see him as an all-pro in 10 years in the NFL. This guy's going to have the most unbelievable NFL career. He will be the real deal. I can promise that. So yeah, just some really great people and a good media day to kind of get our feet wet here. And here we go. And now with the open practice on Friday, that to me is what I'm focused on the most. I'd like to see what the defensive line looks like. Let's see this running game. It looks like in the well-off videos, the running game maybe took a little while, but now it's kind of clicking along here. Micah Welch getting going. Good to see. Again, we had acknowledged last week, we don't know what they're showing. So looks like there's some good signs, and it looks like Shedeur is in a really good spot right now.
Yeah,
so
and
I'm encouraged, Brian.
Yeah, we got to wrap this up, but I do. We made a point right before we started this that we do want to make the point to everybody. We like the running game maybe more than we thought we let on last time we did a video. We like it better. We're just unsure. We want to see it live, but we do like the pieces there, and so I'm excited for that. But
well, no one said it was worse, right? We said it was negligible at
worst.
At best. Yeah. So. Look, I'm encouraged, Brian. I think there are good steps, but there's a couple of weeks to go, and you got to maximize it here.
Yeah. And our main point today is there was a lot more good out of media day than just what's been highlighted.
But you wouldn't know it. But you wouldn't know it almost, you know. So.
But now they know it. If they watch us, then they know.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of good stuff that you and I have been rolling out. We'll continue to roll out. Matt, thank you very much. We'll see you at the open scrimmage. We'll talk about that next Sunday.